and to help you manage all of those types of things. So, with that, I'd like to move on, and I'd like to introduce our first guest speaker. And Joe, our first guest speaker, started his career in the appliance business in 1972, working for GE. In 1977, he went to work for Whirlpool and has held a number of positions with Whirlpool, up to and including a national sales manager. Joe's got a tremendous amount of experience. In December, he retired from Whirlpool, so his talk is not about Whirlpool. His talk is about what he sees as a vision and the opportunity that you all have for the next few years. So with that, I'd like to welcome Joe to the stage. Joe Higgins. Now, before I turn this over to Joe, I'll tell you a little story. I've known Joe since 1978. Joe and I had the same territory in Riverside, San Bernardino. Joe was with Whirlpool, I was with Maytag. And I'd go into dealer stores, and as a rep, we always go into your store and we say, hey, we want to look at the back room, and we need to check your inventory to see if there's any holes, and do we need to sell you some product. Well, the reality is, I wasn't really checking for that. I was checking to see how my competitors were doing. Okay, how much inventory my dealers had versus of somebody else's in mine. And it would always drive me crazy because I'd go in there and there'd be a section for Maytag that was about 20 by 20, and then there'd be like 8,000 square feet for Whirlpool. And I said, this Joe Higgins guy is driving me nuts. So I finally figured out that Joe's secret to success was not that he worked for Whirlpool and not the product that he was selling, and that he always had better deals than I did. His key to success was he always developed a terrific relationship with his dealers. And they looked to Joe for support. They looked to Joe for advice. And again, because Joe's been around for that long, he has helped us from a group standpoint where we've had issues with Whirlpool, or we've had opportunities with Whirlpool, or we've had problems with this or that. Joe has always stepped up and helped support us. He's been a great advocate for us to Benton Harbor. So I just want to take a second and recognize Joe for the contribution that he's made to this organization over the last 40 years. So,
thank you, Bob.
So,
thank you.
I'd like to present that to you. I appreciate it. Listen, here you go. You hold it. You can turn around.
Oh,
say it's
sorry.
And I'm kind of hoping a little bit after seeing all that inventory for so many years that I kind of got him a little off his psyche on this, but not really.
Thanks, Bob. No, I appreciate it. I really do. Well, good morning, Brandsource. Wow. It's great to be in Orlando. It's great to be at the summit. And thanks so much for having me. I tell you, Bob and I do go back a long way. And, when I think about it, Bob and I actually started in the wholesale business when we were 12 years old. So we're not that old. We're a couple of young guys, really. And I did retire. I retired in December of this year after a 43-year-long career, 35 of those with Whirlpool. I had a great career. I had a great boss for 20 of those years. I think it made the difference for me. And I got to tell you that they say about retirement that when you're retired that every day is a Saturday. And I'll tell you that the last 60 days, I've had 60 Saturdays in a row, and it's been wonderful. I recommend the lifestyle. So thanks again for that, and thanks for all your help. Today I'm going to talk to you about 2013, about what the world looks like, our economy looks like over the next year, 2 years, even a 10-year span here. And I want you to know that I got to set some ground rules to begin with, that this presentation is not about my opinion. This is not me coming here telling you about what this is about. I'm going to be talking to you about research that I've done from business schools, from USC, from Stanford, and from the Wharton School of Business at the University of Pennsylvania, as well as information from the National Association of Home Builders. So that's where it comes from. There's no opinions. This is about facts. I'm going to give you facts today, and I'm going to ask you to look at trends, because you're going to see definite trends in where we're going and how this economy is going to roll out. Economics is not a science. Okay, so anything can change in a matter of a minute, a matter of an instant. We've seen that over the years where in an instant our lives can change for a month, for a year, really for a lifetime. 9/11 is an example of that. The Hurricane Sandy affected us big time in Q4. And in the future, something like war with Iran could affect these numbers. And as we sit here today, we actually have sequestration coming up. And you've heard a lot about this on the news. In the next few weeks, that could take effect, and that could affect our numbers. And I'm not going to talk about the fiscal debt or the fiscal deficit or sequestration today, but all I want to say, so that you know where I sit, is that we need to get our representatives in Washington working together. What we're seeing today is affecting us and affecting our economy. So I'll say that on the front end. Also, I'm not going to talk about the debt or the deficit in any great degree. But what I want to say, if I have this on the map here, okay, here it comes. What I want to say was, when we talk about the debt or the deficit, I don't know if you saw this article, it was in the Wall Street Journal about 3 months ago. The U.S. redraws the world oil map. And what it said in effect is that between now and 2020, the United States has become the leading producer of oil in the world. We're going to pass Saudi Arabia. And when you talk about the long-term debt in this country, and you talk about the deficit, when we become a net exporter of oil, that changes everything. And as a matter of fact, with what's going on in the world today, you should already beginning to see lower prices for electricity, lower prices for natural gas, and that's taken effect, and that'll affect us in a big way in the future. So that's some of the ground rules I wanted to set here. And since this is a business presentation, I wanted to start with bad news and good news, if I can. The bad news is that Hostess, as you may know, Hostess is going out of business. Now that means that you can't get your Twinkies, your Ding Dongs, and your Yo-Hos for lunch anymore. But if you really want some, this product has a shelf life of 27 years, and if you buy a lot today, you'll be okay for a lifetime. So I wanted to start there. Okay, so I need to start today by paying you all a compliment. And in order to do that, I actually need you to walk back with me in history, if you remember this day, September 24th, 2008. And if you remember, Bush, Bernanke, and Hank Paulson came in front of the American people, and they said in effect that if we don't make a change by this weekend, it was on a Wednesday, the entire economy is going to collapse. Anybody remember that in here? Yeah, now you all own businesses, and I was getting close to retirement, and I had my money in my portfolio, and I'll tell you, that was a scary time. Oh my gosh, to think about the economy collapsing. And if you don't remember specifically, let me read to you some quotes that Bush said that day, and you can Google this speech. You can read it, you can even watch it if you'd like. And this is what he said. He said, "Major financial institutions have teetered on the edge of financial collapse." He said, "There has been a widespread loss of confidence, and major sectors of the American financial institutions are at risk of shutting down." Boy, we were really close to that too at that time. "Our country could experience a long and painful recession," and that was prophetic. "We have taken actions to prevent a run on banks." Now, if that doesn't scare you as business owners, I'll tell you what, there isn't anything that's going to scare you, because that was a really difficult time. Bear Stearns, one of the largest equities companies in the world, went bankrupt. Lehman Brothers, a 100-year-old company, that actually 150 years old if you go back to their beginnings, went bankrupt. Merrill Lynch, a company that I had traded with my whole life, a company that was the icon of trading of equities, that when they spoke, what did we do? We listened, right? Sold to Bank of America. And did anybody in here bank at Washington Mutual? Let me see a show of hands. You know, being the bright guy that I am, I got really worried at this period, and I started watching these institutions. I started looking at profit and loss statements. I took my money out of Washington Mutual, and I put it in Citibank, only to find out that Citibank was in bigger trouble than Washington Mutual was. They actually got some funds from government, and they were okay. During this period, consumer confidence had reached an all-time low of 39.6. That was the lowest it had been since we started measuring consumer confidence in 1971. GDP, if you remember, GDP in Q4 of 2008 dropped to 9.7%. It was down 9.7%. That was the second largest drop in our history. The first largest drop was Q1 of 1958, 10.7. And Q1 of 2009 was down 5.7%, and that was the fourth largest drop. So you experienced two of the worst drops in GDP 2 quarters in a row, 2008 and 2009. Unemployment, you heard about unemployment. Unemployment was predicted to be 25%. Do you remember that? 25% they were talking about. Now, some historical perspective. In 1929, in the Great Crash during the Great Depression, by 1933, unemployment had reached 24.9%, and that's not where that number came from. But the reality was that in December of 2008, we lost 1 million jobs. In November of 2008, we lost 700,000, and in January of 2009, we lost 900,000. In 3 months, in 3 consecutive months, we lost almost 3 million jobs in this country. It was a difficult time. Every day when you opened up the newspaper, there was a story about a company laying off 30,000 people or 20,000 people. And the stock market had reached an all-time low on March 9th, 2009. The Dow reached 6626. It was the lowest that I'd seen it in my lifetime. Housing. Now think about this for a second. You guys depend on housing, family formations, people buying homes and remodeling homes. That's the biggest part of your business. You were disproportionately hit over the last 4 years because of what happened to housing in this country. We went from 2.2 million units below 400,000. That hits you directly in where you do business. Mattresses, furniture, electronics, and appliances. It changed our world, and it changed your world in a big way. And my compliments to you in that you made it through this tough time. I know it wasn't easy. I know it was difficult, but you made it through. You watched your costs over the last 4 years. You did the right customer service. You did the right things that you needed to do and stay in business, and you're still here. And Bear Stearns and Lehman Brothers and Washington Mutual and Merrill Lynch are gone. So my compliments to the team out here, my compliments to the dealers, my compliments to Bob and John and Jim and all the Brandsource employees, because I know how hard you guys all worked. And for the vendors who were out here too, my compliments to you as well, because being at Whirlpool, I know how hard we worked to keep this industry alive and viable. So I have some good news on where we're going today, and that's really what I'm here to talk about. So let's talk about the economy 2013. This journey has just begun. When you think about where we're at, I'm not here today to tell you that 2013 is going to be a great year. You know, Bob didn't bring me up here to say, oh, everything's going to be wonderful and you should go out and buy all kinds of stuff. That's not what I'm here to do today. I'm here to give you the facts, as I said, let you see the trends and let you decide on where you think this business is going. I can say, though, that we're on the right step. We're taking the first step in this long journey, and I think we're in the first step today. And 2013 will be the beginning of what I think is a longer-term trend in this country where we'll see a 10-year cycle of wealth and prosperity for all of you out there. And I'd like to say before I begin the presentation that in all the work that I've done, all the research that I've looked at since I started this process, which began at the PAC RIM meeting with Terry Alford, Ken Mork, and Mark Pardini, that one thing I have learned, and not that I don't watch these numbers all the time, but one thing I've learned is that we are lucky to live in America. We are lucky to live in to have an economy that is so extraordinary, so progressive, so vibrant, that there isn't anything like this in the world. And when you see some of these numbers and you see what we've done in the last 4 years and where we're going today, I think you'll agree with me that outside of all the news that you get, that we really have some strong numbers and some strong a strong future ahead of us based on what I've been seeing. So let's start with the economy. And I start here with a quote. I said I'm not going to give you any of my opinions, but I do have quotes from high-level experts. And this is Dr. David Blitzer. He's the chairman of the index committee for the Dow and the S&P. He was voted the #1 economist in America 2 years in a row because of the accuracy of his predictions. And this is what he said. Longer-term business barometers all look favorable for economic expansion in 2013. Even if we fall over the fiscal cliff. Now what he's saying there, because you're hearing this on the news, he's saying that even if the government doesn't do their job, that the fundamentals are so strong in America today that we're going to have a good year. And I love this guy. I listen to him all the time. Okay, so let's talk about the economy. What are we looking at? U.S. trade deficit dropped to its lowest rate in 4 years on a major decline in oil imports. That might surprise some people in this room. Oil exports grew by $1 billion in December. That's a record level in the U.S. We've gone from dependency on oil, foreign dependency on oil, from 60% to 40% in the last 2 years. And we'll go to 30% by 2015, and we will become a net exporter of oil by 2020. That is huge news for America and a big deal for us in the longer term. And I said, you've already seen some of the effect of this in some of the pricing you have with your utilities at home. Consumer spending. You know, if there's a holy grail in the economy, if there's something that we all depend on, it's what you and I spend every day. Consumer spending makes up 73% of gross domestic product. And corporations' response to consumer spending makes up another 8%. So fully 80% of everything that you do every day is based on consumer spending. We've had increases every month since May of 2009. And in January again, consumer spending was up 2.2%. And the other great news is consumer sentiment rose in January to 76.3. So very positive trending. This is what I'm asking you to look at today. These are the facts. This is positive trending. GDP. GDP average growth since 1948 has been 3.25%. Q3 of last year, we grew 3.1%. Now, Q4 was kind of an anomaly. Actually, it's been restated now that GDP was up 0.3%, hurt mostly by a major cutback in defense spending and Hurricane Sandy, which impacted us in a big way in the Northeast. But the United States has had 15 consecutive quarters of GDP growth. That's a trend. And we're going to continue to see that in 2013. And we think that GDP will grow at 2.3% next year. So that's strong growth. Now, credit. If anything has affected this group in the way of our world, it's been the use of credit. Look at this number. We have paid down debt $1.3 trillion. Now think about that for a second. How that would affect your business if that money had been spent in consumer spending in your stores, for example, rather than paying down debt. And we are continuing to this day to continue to pay down debt. The savings rate jumped up to 6%. So consumers are saving money and not spending money. But the trend, the big difference today, is that for the first time since 2008, we've seen we've seen credit use go up by 3.4% in 2012, and we think that'll continue into next year. We were living on 160% of our disposable income from 2000 to 2006. 160%. Today, it's now 113%. So in terms of where the consumers are at, and if consumer spending really is the holy grail of this economy, we're in way better shape today than we've been in years. Interest rates. Interest rates will remain stable for the next 12 months. They're at an all-time low. Let me see a show of hands. Has anybody in here bought a house recently? What kind of rate did you get, Chuck? 3.25%. That's a great rate, by the way. I was at a meeting in Las Vegas recently, and I asked the same question, and somebody said 2.6. So the rates are amazing. It's a great time to get a loan. And these rates will remain in place, and this will help our business during the course of next year. Okay, so if there's a harbinger of the future for us in our business, it's auto sales. 2012, 14.5 million cars were sold in this country. That's a 13% increase. And expectations in 2013 are 15.5 million. Now, the average car in America is how old? Anybody in here know? 11 years. The average car is 11 years old, and people are buying cars like crazy right now. It's a great time for the automobile business. This means that consumers are willing to spend their money, that they're going out and they're buying big-ticket items. That's good for our business. The average kitchen in America, now this is a hard number to get to, but I did a lot of research. The average kitchen in America is 16 years old. So imagine where that puts you in terms of the automobile business. Okay, let's talk about unemployment. Because I know this is a big subject. You see this on the news every day. It sounds horrible, right, when you listen to it. We don't talk about employment as the employment rate. We talk about employment as the unemployment rate. I'm not sure why, but we do. And there are two organizations that do a great job of predicting unemployment. One of them is the CBC, the Congressional Budget Committee, and the other one is Moody's Analytics. The CBC is predicting 9 million jobs created in the next 4 years. That means that the unemployment rate would get down to around 5.6%. But there's a better organization, the more accurate organization. It's called Moody's Analytics. And Moody's is saying there's going to be 12 million jobs created in the next 4 years. Now, you heard this number during the election cycle. After all the research I did, I'm somewhere between those numbers. But whether it's 4.8% or 5.2% or whatever the number is, I think you'd agree with me that we are looking better now in the next 4 years than we have in the past 4 years. We're looking better, and we are going in a better direction than you guys have been in a long time. Okay, so let's talk about unemployment. We've had 41 consecutive months of job growth. And the majority of that has been in the private sector. We've actually had really good growth, I think, in the private sector this year. The economy created 157,000 jobs in January, and unfortunately, the unemployment rate moved up. It hasn't been coming down, it moves up. When you start to create jobs, more people come back in the market for jobs, and the unemployment rate goes up. So today it's at 7.9%. Private sector job growth will quicken in 2013, and you'll see why here in a second. Unemployment will end the year at 7.5%, and job creation around 180,000 jobs. Now you're looking at me and saying, well, 7.5%, that's not very good. We're at 7.9 today. And I said when I started that I'm not here to tell you that this is going to be a great year. I'm telling you that this is the first step in the longer journey. And 7.5 today, I'll take that number. I'll take that number because we have great growth in the next 4 years. Now, one of the reasons why we have not seen unemployment move over the last 4 years is because government has shed 2 million jobs. Now, I think that we would all probably agree that this is a good thing. I think we would all believe that government needs some restructuring. I know local cities, local counties, states have all shed jobs over the last 4 years, 2 million jobs. And in this number, in the 157,000 jobs, in government, there was 9,000 jobs lost just last year. And from an economist's point of view, you have to understand that a job is a job. We don't really care where it comes from. But the government now is at a point where fewer jobs will be shed in the coming years. So job losses will continue to occur, but it's going to slow down. But the good news for you, and the good news for all of us really, is that the rebound coming in housing is going to have a major impact on unemployment. I said before, you were disproportionately hit compared to other businesses in America as a result of this recession. And we created 30,000 jobs in January in just housing alone. And that number is going to jump in the second half of the year to 60,000 jobs a month in housing. That's a big deal, and that's a big change for us in this country. Okay, so let me see a show of hands here that the people in this room who think that the stock market is going to be up in 2013. Okay, an optimistic bunch. Now, that's kind of a trick question because the market's already up 7 points, right? The S&P is up 7 points so far this year, so I think 6.4, 6.5, something like that. If you look at 3 months, the markets are actually up 11%. Stock market's having a banner year. And this next quote is from somebody who is Abby Cohen, who's considered the rock star of analysts. This is a lady that I listen to a lot. I read her stuff. She's saying that, excuse me. She's saying that, hang on. Bob, I thought I turned my phone off. I told you I did, and for some reason it turned back on here. Okay, sorry about that. Abby Cohen, the rock star of analysts. Abby Cohen actually predicted the bull market run of the 90s, the crash in 2000, the upswing in housing, and the current bull market that we're in. She's an analyst at Goldman Sachs, and this is what she says. And she, again, is a rock star because of the accuracy of her predictions. Americans are carrying less personal debt as a percent of their incomes than at any time since the 1990s. And large corporations have excess cash. Stocks could rise 10 to 15% in 2013. That's news for us, and I'll tell you why in a second here. And I'll talk about large corporations having excess cash. But you know what? She made this prediction back in November when the market actually had taken a slight correction. And so I wouldn't be fair if I wasn't, as I was saying that this just came out, because the market is up considerably already. Okay, so let's talk about the stock market. The market's forward-looking. It predicts the future, and we think that it's going to continue this amazing January, February run that it's in. If those of you who have 401ks out there, I know that your 401k went to a 101k, and then it went to a 201k, and hopefully it's back now to a 401k. And for those of you who are really good investors, maybe it's a 601k or a 701k. Hopefully you got to that point. But the market is forward-looking. Think about what I said earlier. The stock market went to 66.26 on March 9th, 2009. 4 years later, it's now flirting, the Dow's flirting with a record number. 14,128 is its record, and it's just about there. And let me give you some historical perspective. In 1929, when the market crashed, the lowest point in the market was 397. Now, for those of you who are historians out there, you might know this question. How long did it take the market before it closed again above 397? 25 years. 1954, it closed at 404. And we did that in 4 years. And again, I said how great this American economy is. That's what we do. That's what you all do. That's what you do out there every day. You make the difference in these numbers running like that. Corporate profits will remain strong, and free cash flow will be robust. And I got to tell you a story about this. You know, as you do a run-up for a presentation in front of a lot of people, you're always worried about the news you're going to give. And I started reading about the earnings season that was coming up, and the pundits were saying, oh, you know, profits were really strong in Q3, and Q4 is not going to be good. That the market's already at a high point, and, you know, there's no way that we're going to see a strong earnings season. And guidance is going to be weak because 2013 looks like it's going to be a weak year. And I thought, oh, okay, maybe I shouldn't put this in this presentation. Maybe I should take it out because it doesn't look good. But then Alcoa came out, who is always traditionally the first reporter during earnings season. And Alcoa said, wow, we had a great fourth quarter, and guidance is very strong in 2013. And so I felt better. And then GE came out, and GE is this big conglomerate. They're a bellwether account because they have so many different businesses. And GE said, gee, our profits were strong in Q4. We beat expectations, and our guidance is very good in 2013. I was like, wow, that's great news. And then Google came out, and IBM came out, and DuPont came out. And then 70% of all the companies that reported this year in the earnings season in January said our profits were good in Q4, and our guidance is strong in 2013, and 70% is a record number. Do you realize that the average since 1948 is 62%? And the pundits were saying that that was wrong. The pundits were saying that wasn't going to happen. And I'm talking about trending here, and the trending is very good. American corporations are sitting on $2 trillion in cash on their balance sheets, and I'll talk about that here in a little bit. Okay. A killer for the market is inflation and deflation. We will see none of that in 2013 and over the next 12 months. And keep this one number in mind for all the dealers out there. 20% of Americans own 80% of all the stocks. And that's going to be important when I get to a section on the luxury part of our business. Small investors come back in around this time in a market. And we're starting to see that today. $26 billion flowed into mutual funds in the last 2 weeks. And that's the highest level since 2000, the year 2000. Okay. So, let's talk about the top performing stocks in the S&P. And I know that you're looking at this list and you're saying, come on, Joe, you put this list together because Whirlpool is the number 3 stock, right? 113%. And I'm proud of that number. I know that Sam and Tom are here, and the Whirlpool team is here, and I know that they're very proud of what Whirlpool did last year. But I got to tell you, that's not why I put this together. The reason why I put this together is my next section is on housing. And if you look at the top 10, Pulte is the largest builder by units, up 171% in stock price this year. Their business is up 49%. Lennar, the largest builder by market cap, their stock's up 93%, their business is up 43%. And Toll Brothers, a great luxury builder in America, their business is up 40% and their stock price is up 81%. So 3 of the top 10 stocks on the S&P 500 are in the top 10, and they're the housing stocks. And I said earlier that this is the most important category for all of you, because what housing does is going to determine over the longer term what you do. It's critical to our business. It's critical to what we do, to all of our businesses. Again, whether you're mattress, furniture, appliances, or electronics, it doesn't matter. So Sam Aldenar put me in charge of, in 2000, of the contract business, field sales business in 2000. And I had retail and I had key accounts as well, but I had contract. And during that time, I met a guy by the name of Doug Yearley. He was the vice president of sales for Toll Brothers, a luxury builder. Does anybody in here own a Toll Brothers home? Anybody? Okay. Anybody know anybody that owns a Toll Brothers home? Okay, there you go. They're great homes, aren't they? They're great homes. They really are. Well, Doug Yearley, I really like this guy, and he had something that he said that I thought was really important. He said that talking about Toll Brothers, we are enjoying the most sustained demand we've experienced in over 5 years. Now, the key word there and the trending there is the word sustained. Sustained, because the housing market has teased us now for the last 5 years. And now we believe that we're back, that this business is back. And if you haven't been convinced by just the stock movement alone, then just what these guys are saying will tell you that things are happening in housing today. The chief economist of the NAHB is David Crow. and he said that nearly every measure of housing, whether it's market strength, sales, starts, prices, permits, builder confidence, has been trending, there's that word again, trending up this past year. We expect to see steady growth along these lines in 2013. Ladies and gentlemen, this is good for your business. Let's talk about housing. If you want to buy a house, if you have been thinking about the right time to buy a house, today's the right time. The affordability rate is its lowest level in my lifetime. The interest rate that Chuck got on his loan at 3.2% is the lowest I think you'll ever see again. Today's the time to buy a house. We are in the housing recovery. This will be the year. In fact, prices have gone up 6% nationally. That's a sign that the housing's coming back, and it's sustained, as Doug Yearley said. Single-family housing starts are projected in 2013 to be up 22% according to the NAHB, and 30% next year. 30%. And we're entering a 10-year cycle. We are going to see where we have a strong 2014, and then you'll be 2015 to 2025, and you'll be in a long-term cycle, just like you were from 1995 to 2006. The Home Builders Index was the best performing index in America. These stocks are at their highest level since 2007. And Lennar, right here in Florida. I'm not sure if we have any Floridians here, but Lennar is right here in Miami. I see them back there. Lennar has a 30,000 square foot office, and they're doubling the size of that office because they're so confident that this business is coming back. On average, every time a home is sold in America, $60,000 goes into the economy. I said we're going to build about 1 million homes. I think 972,000 is the number. That means that $60 billion is going to go into the economy this year, and most of that money is going to go into your stores. Mattresses, furniture, electronics, and appliances, right? This is what happens. And then one other piece of great news, I think, for all of you is the remodeling index. The remodeling index is at its highest level in 5 years. And in the paper, during earnings season, I know you can't see this, but Home Depot. Home Depot stock's up 50%. I said that the market predicts the future, that money flows to where the business goes. And the Lowe's stock's up 40%. And what the chief executive officer, the chief financial officer, Carol Tomei of Home Depot said was that this is the best year for remodeling that we've seen since 2006. We expect it to grow another 8% in 2013. So your remodeling business is going to come back in a big way. And again, this business is going to grow similar to what it did from 1995 to 2005. This is a great year for housing. This market has come back in a big way. Okay, the luxury market. Let's talk about the luxury market for a second. You know, I've had lunch and dinner with, I know that a number of you in this room over the years, and I think in 2007 or 2008 when everything kind of went to hell, a lot of us talked about the luxury market going away, disappearing. You know, that these high-end appliances probably wouldn't be necessary anymore in most of the homes around America. But indeed, in December, Joachim Schmidt, the executive vice president of Mercedes-Benz, said that in December we posted a new sales record again, the key word there being again. 12 months of sales records at Mercedes-Benz. Will be the biggest selling year in our history, 2012. If there's an icon for luxury in America, it's Mercedes-Benz. If there's an icon for conspicuous consumption, it's Mercedes-Benz. Mercedes-Benz up 12.4% last year. Now, if there's another icon for luxury, it's BMW. And their business was up 17.9%. And does anybody in here own a 6 Series BMW? Nobody. 6 Series BMW, one of the most expensive cars in their line, up 67%. So the luxury market is back, and the luxury market's back in a big way, and we'll see why here in a second. The luxury market index increased 8.8% in 2012. And the stock market affects this customer. I was saying that 20% of the consumers, who are luxury consumers, own 80% of the stocks. And that's your customer. You sell this customer, because this is the customer that wants service, they want selection, they want high-end, and they are going to be in your stores, and they're going to be remodeling their kitchens, and they're going to be buying high-end product. Now, if there's an icon for clothing, we all know that it's Nordstrom's. Up 13.8% this year. High-end, luxury again. Saks. You know Saks as Saks Fifth Avenue. I know them as Saks Inc. Now, you're looking at that number on the board for Saks, and you're saying, oh my gosh, Joe, 5.5%? What kind of a performance is that? But this is really a great story because Saks Inc., when the new owners came in, they drove the business up, sales up 5.5%, but their margins up 41%. A high-end store is selling even higher-end product year over year. So that's good news for the luxury business. And Rolex. Now, I'm not sure how many people in here have a gold presidential Rolex, but when we were at the president's meeting in Las Vegas, there was a watch boutique downstairs, and I was talking about Rolex, and I saw it, and I went in and I said, what does a gold presidential Rolex cost? And the lady looked me right in the eye and she said, $35,000. And I said, thank you, and I started to walk out, and she stopped me and she said, well, wait a minute, but for you today, $28,000. She cut the price $7,000, and I just turned my back on her. I went back to my room and I looked it up, and the price of a gold Rolex is $25,000. And that's steep in my mind, that's steep. And yet Rolex is up 27.1% this year. So the luxury market is back. And sales of $1 million homes are up 34% since June. Now, I can remember, and I know that some of the news that we would all get is that $1 million homes, these McMansions of the baby boomers, they're done. That they're going to be sitting in empty fields somewhere and no one's going to be able to afford to live in them. And today, there's a shortage of these $1 million homes. That's hard to believe, isn't it, from all the things that we've seen. We are continuing to sell luxury in this country, and as a matter of fact, this market, this luxury market will grow faster than the mass market. And I know that when Tom Arndt had me in charge of independent sales the last few years, that our KitchenAid and our Jenner business actually grew faster than our mass business, our Whirlpool and our Maytag business, as a percent. And that business is coming back. And that business will remain strong over the next 10 years. You will see that in your stores as we move forward. And I think many of you have already seen it because I know we used to see it in our numbers. Okay, so you're going to kill me on this next section. I know that. I guess I got to get prepared for it. I feel like Marco Rubio. Okay, so warning to all of you out there that all these numbers and all these facts you've been listening to for the last 30 minutes or so, not important. Not important. Most Americans don't follow this stuff. Most Americans don't even understand this stuff. It's not the facts that are important. It's how we feel about the facts that are important. It's about how Americans feel about the facts. And how you feel about the facts drives behavior. So when your brother or your sister lose a job, it makes you feel a certain way. When your next door neighbor's house, that's a friend of yours, let's say, goes into foreclosure, it makes you feel a certain way and act a certain way. See, as human beings, we tend to think the worst of any situation and think that it's going to happen to us. And if some rep that calls on you gets downsized in an organizational change, it makes us feel a certain way. And as leaders of your organization, as all of you are leaders in here in some way, in some fashion, that your people are better salespeople and they're more motivated if they believe and if they feel like we're on a good course. Now, I used to do this for Whirlpool almost every phone call, every month at least. And we have an RSD in the room here, Jimmy Clark from Florida, and he coined the term Higgonomics. And I did this in the darkest days of the recession. Right, Jimmy? And we tried to keep our salespeople feeling good and feeling up and feeling positive and feeling motivated. And I'll tell you that that's what we all need to do. Because as you saw, the numbers are pretty good. The numbers point us to a way that says, hey, we're going to have a pretty good 2013. And beyond that, they look even better than what we were seeing. Okay? So keep that in mind. And I want to end here with an important page, the one that I put together that I thought was really important for those of you in the room. And that's the demographics and some of the changes that we're seeing among independent retail. First of all, Bob and I were having lunch about 2 months ago. And I remember giving Bob a statistic. Matter of fact, it was this statistic. That boomers, baby boomers, make up 78% of all consumer spending. And Bob said, yeah, I believe that. And I said, well, geez, I don't. And I triple checked it. I had to triple check this number. And let me just see a show of hands. Who in the room here was born prior to 1964? Just raise your hand. All right, Bob, there's your answer, right? There's your answer. Baby boomers make up 78% of consumer spending, and that is your customer. That's who you sell. That's who comes into your door. And anybody in the room here that's 48 years old? Anybody? Don't worry, I won't say anything. 48 years old. This is the part about being 48 years old, 47, 48. That's the year that you, and this can be good news or bad news, depending on how you take it, but that's the year that you spend more money than any other time in your life. And that's where the boomers are. The youngest boomer is 48 years old, the youngest boomer. Now, we hear a lot about Gen X and Gen Y and how they're not going to shop in your stores, but the one thing we find about demographics is that demographics aren't defined by a generation, they're defined by your age. So that when Gen X and Gen Y, oops, I went backwards there. When Gen X and Gen Y get to be 40, 41, 42 years old, guess what? They become customers of independent retail. They want selection, they want service. They want the same things that the boomers wanted when they were that age. So they're going to continue to have an effect on your business. Now, as I said before, when I started my career here, I've been in independent retail for most of my life. I've lived and died independent retail. And my career is really based around this business and all of you in this room here. And I've had bad news about independent retail and outlet share for 20 years. But in 2012, I'm very happy to report that for the first time in a long time, TrackLine Stevenson data said that for rolling 12, outlet share for independent retail is up 0.4%. That is huge, ladies and gentlemen, and I think that you should give yourselves a hand for that number. So everything's coming together here, right? You're having a great outlet share, the business is coming back, it's way better than it has ever been before. And now, for the first time, Sam and I were talking last night, told me that industry hasn't been up since 2006. And so for the first 6 weeks of 2013, industry's up 5.4%. And as a matter of fact, last week, breaking news, industry was up 13.1%. So this business is coming back. One thing to note, that all generations are aspirational. So when you think that, hey, there are customers out there that are not going to shop in your stores because they don't want to buy high-end stuff anymore, they do. Like I said, age defines behavior more than generational expectations that we have. Okay, so I'm not sure about you, but you know, I hear all the bad news that you guys hear, and I get up in the morning and I get on the freeways in Los Angeles. I know some of you live in rural markets, and I get on the freeway at 7 o'clock, and the freeway in Los Angeles looks just like that. And I say to myself, if nobody's working, why are they all on the freeway at 7 o'clock in the morning? If you go out to restaurants in your city and you walk in on a weekend and there are wait times and there are people sitting all around the restaurant. I know that we had a meeting, Tom Arndt had a meeting in Chicago just a few months back, and I took some of the guys out to dinner that night. And this is in downtown Chicago, and we got in around 5:30 and the place had a 45-minute wait. And I looked around and I said, why are all these people in here eating and spending money if they don't have jobs? Right? Remind your teams that 92% of Americans today are working. And even in the darkest days of this recession, 90% were working. It's important to keep your teams positive. Stay positive. Keep your employees positive, and you'll have a better outcome in the longer term. You know, I believe that we are on the verge of a breakout year. And think about where we've been. We've been in one of the worst recessions in U.S. history, certainly in our lifetimes. And today we see everything on the other side of that recession is way better than where we were. Think about unemployment. We had predictions of 25% unemployment, and today we're at 7.9%, and we're predicting 12 million jobs in the next 4 years. The market, I told you the market went from 66.26 on March 9th, 09, and it's flirting with record highs today. Record highs. And housing. You guys have been disproportionately hurt, I said this before, by the housing market. We've gone from under 400,000 and we're going to build 1 million units today. That's great for your business. You will be disproportionately helped by the housing market. And you can't deny that luxury has come back. That's an important set of numbers for your business. And demographics are in your favor. And I hate to say this because I know this is kind of a cliche, but this is your year. This is your year to make a difference. Be prepared for it. Be prepared for it, because this is coming. This is going to change our industry in a big way. You know, I always like doing this kind of stuff. I always enjoy being here. I appreciate you guys so much coming, and thanks so much. I'm looking forward to coming back here someday and looking at the prosperity and the wealth that this next cycle, this next 10-year cycle is going to create. Thank you so much. I'm going to be around the show. I'll see you all soon.
Good job. Great. How about another round of applause for Joe? Thanks, Joe.